from my voice, but I have never seen anything like it.
Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
Welcome back to the show. Thanks for checking out the podcast. I know there's a lot of content, a lot of podcasts, a lot of videos out there for you on the World Wide Web, so clicking on our podcast and listening to our content means a lot. So we're breaking down Avenue 5 today. Is it my favorite show on television right now? No, but it is the one that I'm currently most intrigued to see where they go. Two things I want to get done, though, before we start this podcast and get into it. One, I had recorded this podcast earlier in the night. I record these Monday night to give you guys Tuesday morning. I recorded one of these episodes earlier tonight, as I do, and it sounded awful. So be thankful that you're getting a much better sounding podcast. But because I did that, if I ever refer to on the other show, or like I said earlier, and I hadn't said it earlier, it's because I have said it before, maybe just not here. So please bear with me if that happens. The second thing I wanted to get done is, I don't know if this showed up on your social media feeds. I don't know if you are keeping up with this type of stuff. I'm following everybody on Twitter. So it seems like I'm getting all this content 24/7. But NASCAR races were on Monday night. Very bad crash, and Ryan Newman was one of the drivers, and the last update I saw was he was in ICU, but he wasn't in critical condition, so we thank our lucky stars for that. But I always try to, if I see something like this, I want to tell you guys, because I'm not a big thoughts and prayers type of guy, but I do think that sometimes works, and that works sometimes, so I want to give you guys the opportunity, if you are those type of people, to give a second to think about that type of stuff. So, with that said, let's get into it. So, Avenue 5, this is one of those shows that the concept seems to really work. This is a show that seems, from a standpoint of writing, needs a little work. And we're going to get into all of that. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself before I give you the complete concept of it. So, the show has some very interesting characters, to say the least. And by interesting characters, I mean the type of actors that when they're on these TV shows, I'm immediately intrigued in seeing. So Hugh Laurie, formerly on House, played Dr. House. This is a show that I remember when it was on network television. I didn't see it a ton because I was kind of young. I remember seeing a handful of episodes, knowing my parents didn't want me to see it because it was up too late. It was a good show then. It's a great show now. Anytime I'm having a sick day or there's some time that I can sit down and just flip through channels in between recording a podcast or going to a sporting event or getting ready to do something else on the day, if I can flip it on and see a couple scenes from one of the shows, I always like to, because he was an incredible actor then and he's an incredible actor now. He's been in a lot of other things since then, but that's the thing that I know him most from. Then, of course, there's Josh Gad, who's probably more well-renowned than Hugh Laurie because he's in the largest grossing animated film now series of all time. He played Olaf in Frozen. So he also was on Broadway, award-winning actor, many Tonys, I'm pretty sure. He's in the Book of Mormon, incredibly funny actor. He's in this show. He's probably the most... He's clearly the character that I have the most notes on. So, again, another one of those that we're going to get to in a second. And then, of course, Zach Woods, who, if you haven't seen Silicon Valley, that's one of my favorite shows of all time. Is easily by far one of my favorite shows that I've seen since becoming an avid TV watcher. So that's a show that you should check out. But he's in that show as well and on HBO. So if you have HBO, you can go stream it. A lot of other places if you want to try to illegally stream it, so you can check it out there too. But he's one of those actors that it feels like HBO and a lot of these networks has a list or a roster of guys who they like the casting agent, they like his agent, they like him. Something about that type of deal is they always go back to the well on these type of guys. And he is one of those actors who continually ends up on HBO shows. Now, this is one of those shows in a post-Game of Thrones world that it has to work, okay? Because Game of Thrones was so successful and it set the bar so high that we all said there's nothing that can compare to this. There's no way that HBO is ever going to have anything comparable to Game of Thrones. And I stand by it that it's going to take a while for them to figure out something that is going to top that. It's going to be really hard. Game of Thrones is one of, if not the greatest show of all time. But then they put out Chernobyl, which was a mini doc series, and HBO has been known to put out very good mini series, and they've been very good at kind of keeping with the original material, whether it be source material from a book or a spin-off of a movie. They've always been a really good job of keeping to the source material, and in the Chernobyl's case, take it or leave it, and disagree with it if you might, because there's a lot of articles written that a lot of the stuff that they portray in there didn't happen exactly like that. It made for incredible television. So coming off of Game of Thrones, you have another show like this, like Chernobyl, that blows people's socks off. Succession Season 2 was amazing. Another very good work of television. It's going to win a bunch of Emmys. Once this show's over, it's going to be in that pantheon of great HBO television shows. So then you get a show like this that's supposed to fill that role of comedy. It's that comedy for the spring. It's that show that HBO has right before they go into the summer, right before they go get some of those blockbusters from the winter to kind of put on their streaming site. This is supposed to be that kind of show that holds you over. And I'll say this, that unlike Netflix that can put out 1,000 movies and television shows all on very low production value, all on very low production cost, it is in HBO's best interest, I think, to continue having very high production value, continuing to go get some of those, if not movie stars, television stars, to act and be in their television shows. I think that's a big draw. And we're going to get into that later in the podcast, too, where I break down my three-way kind of graph, right? Like if you break a television show into a pie and there's the 3 slices of the pie, 2 of these slices are much bigger in this show than the third one. And I think a perfect show, all 3 make sense. So let's get into the show. I'm not going to give any spoilers. It's all going to be very broad brush stuff. It's not going to be very detail-oriented. I'm not going to give away anything that is going to ruin the show for you. If you haven't seen it yet, there's 5 episodes currently available to stream on HBO. Also, you can find it on other illegal sites. I'm just letting you know that you don't always have to go to the main source. If you're broke like I am and like a lot of people are, there's other places to get this content. So, the premise of the show is a premise that I really enjoy. It's a premise that makes a lot of sense, and it fits the sitcom drama series. So the premise of the show is Avenue 5 is a cruise ship going through space. Okay, so imagine your normal Caribbean cruise ship that would go to the Bahamas, but this is a cruise ship that goes on a year-long journey throughout space. Well, in the first episode, there is a mishap, and the head engineer ends up dying. And you learn very quickly that things will not run well on this ship, will not run at all without this guy, which makes our hero, Hugh Laurie, and his crew very nervous, to say the least. So he has to figure out a way to fix and right the ship. And also, in addition to all of these problems, you have Josh Gad's character, who plays the mogul, the billionaire or trillionaire, who is the person who is financing this entire trip. This is his company that makes these cruise spaceships. This is his company that is on the hook for all the insurance issues with having a spaceship like this go haywire. Their original year-long journey is extended to 3 years. 3.5 years they're going to be on the spaceship with each other. And if you've ever been on a flight that takes longer than it needs to, and then you know that people get very antsy on a 3-hour flight that turns into 3.5 hours, if there's turbulence or there's some issue at the airport you're trying to land in. If you're on the ground, if you're grounded for longer, you know that people get very antsy very quickly. So imagine all of those problems, but now you're on a spaceship in the middle of space for an extra 2.5 years. And then, of course, you have the third rail of this show, that is the people back home at Earth, who it's kind of like the mission control, we have a problem, Houston, we have a problem kind of situation. Now, when you have the concept for this show, when it kind of makes sense, when this is a show that there's not a whole lot of ways that you can mess this up, it's incredible to me that the Rotten Tomato score for this show is 65, which 70 should be about the level that you want your television show to be in the first season. There's a lot of great shows that had a very rough season one: Friends, The Office, Seinfeld, incredible network sitcoms that had a very turbulent season one, and then were able to fix it very quickly. Sunny in Philadelphia is on season, I want to say 15 or 16, and that season one Rotten Tomato score is pretty bad. You look at the audience rating for the show, 43%. Now, do I think that is 4 stars out of 10? No. I think it's better than that. I think that the audience members are being very critical of the show. But when you read the critiques, when you read the reviews of the show, Glenn Weldon from NPR, top critic, he goes, "It takes Avenue 5 a while to find its footing and make sense. It's supposed to be given how often the ship's gravity is conky." Okay, so, another thing about the show is that there's this, they have problems, and this is getting a little bit early into the, let's nitpick, but they've got these issues with the ship that seem very fixable, and it seems like they should be able to solve them quickly if there's actual professionals on board, and you wonder a lot of the times why there aren't. What has happened where you don't have these officials, these people that should be able to fix these problems, aren't in the right place at the right time? There's a lot of questions there, but when you read the audience critiques of it, I kind of agree with a lot of it. This is a show, for the most part, every episode ends on kind of a cliffhanger, which all HBO shows do. There's very rarely in the game plan of HBO shows where you don't have a cliffhanger. Silicon Valley did it. Curb Your Enthusiasm kind of does it. Veep did it. All of these incredible HBO shows give you a cliffhanger to get you to the next episode. I don't love that plan. I don't think that it's necessary so much when you have a show as good as Veep or a show as good as Curb Your Enthusiasm, where I think that you have enough self-contained comedy, enough self-contained show that you don't need to keep giving me the hook that I'm going to come back no matter what. I enjoy the characters. I like the story. I'm going to come back no matter what. You don't need to give me the cliffhanger every time. This show, in the first season, I get it. You need to have the cliffhanger. I don't love them. That's a big criticism here. The cliffhangers, every single episode, it feels like they create a problem in the last 2 minutes of the show to make me come back and watch it. And a show that we got done watching on Monday night, The Bachelor, they need to have that. It's reality television. They need to give me a cliffhanger between every commercial break, between every episode. There needs to be a reason for me to come back to the well to watch. Because if there isn't, there's a lot of other stuff happening in the world. There's a lot of other content available for me to digest than to watch The Bachelor if I kind of know what's going to happen. If I don't have that cliffhanger, if I don't have that thing that makes me want to come back, it's not going to work. But for this show, the cliffhangers, they don't really work very well. A lot of fans want to talk about how none of the jokes land. That's another criticism that I think is very fair. I think that we can get into it now. Every good show is split up into, I think, 3 parts. I think that it's the cast, the production of the show, the set design, the costumes, the amount of money you want to put into the sound editing, and then of course there's the script writing. And a great show like Game of Thrones was able to take the production value and jack that up, and the script, the source material is incredible, jack that right up, and then you don't need to have a cast of all-stars. The script writing and the production cost will offset me not knowing who any of these actors and actresses are. Right? Slowly, after Season 1 and Season 2 of Game of Thrones, all those characters, all those actors and actresses became world famous. And now, the money that you were spending on production and script writing, that money stays there, but because the money is being brought in hand over fist, you can pay these actors a little bit more too, and then you have an incredible show. Sopranos the same way. There's a couple of actors on that show that had a little bit of career before Sopranos, but the script was so great that it offset everything. The Wire, same way. The source material is incredible. The actors, you're able to pay maybe a little bit less, early on, and then when the show hits it big, hand over fist. This show, I think that if you were going to rank what's the most important, I would say plot and storyline and script writing are the most important things. That you need to set that up first, and then the production, and then the actors and actresses, and the cast. This show does the opposite. This show, production is number one. It's an expensive show. HBO has the money for it. It makes sense. This would never work on network. This would never work on a ABC. It wouldn't work on cable. It has to be pay-per-view. The money's too high for the production. The cast the same way. Josh Gad's an expensive actor now. He's world-renowned for Olaf. Okay, he can do any project he wants, he can do. Hugh, same way. Zach Wood, little bit to a lesser extent, but yeah, I would say that he can probably get another project if he wanted it, if he really did. If he wanted to get another project on network television, I think that he probably could swing it. So again, cast is really big. Script writing, the jokes just don't land. It's season 1. HBO's been known to pull the plug on some very successful shows, to write shows that are only going to go for 3, maybe 4 seasons. If we're being real, another HBO show that probably won't last much longer is Euphoria. That show is great. Season 1 was amazing. I really enjoyed it. My friends enjoyed it even more. There's a group of friends I have that have seen it. Last time I checked up on them 8 times from start to finish. That show's been out for less than a year. They've seen it 8 times. This show came out this year, January, and I've barely seen all 5 episodes. And I kind of wouldn't if you said to me, hey, you can get out now. I might think about getting out. But what's interesting is the jokes don't land. Josh Gad is the most annoying character in the show. The mogul billionaire who is kind of a dutz, is kind of a doofus. Sure, that character makes sense. Fine. You can write a character like that, but you need to do it well, and they don't do it well. You wonder a lot of the time, how did he make his money? Because if it is in cruise ships, if it is in logistics, if it is in entertainment, he's not very good at any of those things. I'm sorry to break it to you, but the writing for that character is very bad. The writing for a lot of this stuff doesn't make a ton of sense. I'm not super enthralled in the world that they built. Again, if you're going to make a show like this, the production, of course, needs to be very high, but the writing needs to be very good. And that piece of the pie, I think, is missing. Josh Gad, worst part of the show, I think, and that's saying something. There's a lot of things that I think are missing with this show. I think there's a lot of things that you could ask for more, and that's one of them. That is one of the things. I would say that this show, it was 5 episodes in, and I know I've just dogged on it. There's a lot of good things about it. I really like the character of I'm trying not to butcher her name. I love the character of Lenore Chillo. I think that she plays Billy McVoy on the show. She's done an incredible job. Neil Casey from Drunk History, he's on the show as well. Andy Buckley III is on it, playing Frank. That's a good character too. There's a lot of good writing in the show. Lenore Chillo, I feel like I'm just butchering her name, but she's an incredible actress. She plays, like I said, Billy, the engineer on the bridge. Incredible actress. She's by far stealing the show, I think. I think that she is really outplaying Hugh in every scene. Really outplaying Hugh. So, I would give this show right now a tentative C+, B-. But again, 5 episodes in, I'm pretty sure I heard that it's going to 10 episodes. So we're halfway through, and I think that they can fix it. I think that there is enough good stuff about the show. There's enough things that I like about the show that if they figured out a way to turn it in these next couple episodes, that it could survive for a season 2. But if they don't get it on the right track now, and HBO says yeah, you can get another season, I think that they're throwing money down the toilet, because it's not good enough to be where the amount of money that they're spending in production. I think the amount of money they're spending on the cast, they need to get a better script. So let's talk about what we can expect the rest of the week. And there's a social media deal that's going around that I kind of want to touch on before we get done. I know it's Television Tuesday, and I really try to keep it very concise for you guys, but there's this deal right now going around. It's this grilled cheese thing, okay? And I don't know if you've ever had a grilled cheese sandwich, but I know everybody's had a type of sandwich that they make at their home. Nobody living in America today has not had a sandwich. So it comes down to, how do you cut the sandwich? How do you cut your grilled cheese? How do you cut your PB&J? How do you cut your ham and cheese? It's very simple. It's diagonal. It has to be diagonal. These crazy people are cutting their sandwich in the middle, where if you had the crust, right, draw the crust with your finger, it goes up, you do the Mickey Mouse ears, goes down, finish it, right? So it looks like a little house. It's a little square with two little ears. People are cutting that in the middle, and I'm not talking vertical. I'm talking horizontal. They're cutting that horizontal. These are crazy people. These are times, I told somebody like earlier this week, that the times we live in are crazy. How are people cutting their sandwich like this? It doesn't make sense. So I wanted to get that out of the way on this episode. I wanted to put that in writing, put that in audio forever and always, that if you are cutting your sandwich vertically, you're doing it the right way. If you're cutting it horizontal, you're cutting it where you have the little rabbit ears on one end and the rest of the sandwich on the other. Crazy people. Cut it diagonal. It makes too much sense. All right. Thank you for listening to the show. Sam OJ coming with the draft board tomorrow. The AFC East. You guys really liked the AFC North one that we did last week, so that's really cool. Love to have him on. Film Friday. We're trying to figure out if we want to do Fantasy Island. It's a horror movie that came out on Valentine's Day, and you know Valentine's Day movies always are kind of suck. Sonic the Hedgehog came out. Somehow that movie has a 93 on Rotten Tomatoes right now, too. I don't get that at all. I had no effort to see that movie. I made no effort to care about that movie, but a 93 makes me want to check it out just for giggles. So we'll figure that out, and it's going to be a lot of fun. The rest of this week is going to be a lot of fun. Friday, I have career news, hopefully, for you guys. It's going to be really big. I hate to tease that all the way to Friday. I know it's only Tuesday, but it's bigger news, so you're going to want to tune into that. So Film Friday is the next big time you're going to want to listen. We did NBA All-Star stuff. We've done a lot of other really cool stuff. I feel bad we haven't done any XFL things yet. I've watched some of the games. I'm going to give you a real quick 30-second recap. They're good. The games are fine. You know, tune in if you like football. If you don't like football, don't tune in. It's not that big of a deal. Things that are going right, the play-by-play, the sidelines, the interviews, those are doing really good. Things that aren't working, the quarterback play is god-awful. I told you guys before the season, bet on the defense, so it kind of sucks. Thank you for listening to the show. Remember to keep Ryan Newman and his family in your prayers. Remind each other how much that you mean to each other, because you never know what happens. So I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Thanks for listening.